Well, welcome to Bet On It, powered by Wager Talk TV. I am Kelly Stewart at Kelly in Vegas and all those beautiful social media platforms. Today we got some big game breakdowns, barking dogs, maybe a deli opening back up, fading Joe Public, and of course some best bets to wrap it all up. Let's bring in Joe Raineri and Marco D'Angelo to break down some of these big games. Saturday, ABC, 3:30 Eastern, Oregon at Washington. Washington is now a 3-point favorite, Marco, total 67.
Yeah, Kelly, this one here is going to dictate the winner of this game's going to have the inside track to the national playoffs, whoever emerges from this one. And these two teams have played well. But if you look at the last three games, you're going to think Oregon is invincible. I mean, their opponents handily. But beating Hawaii, beating Stanford, that means nothing to me. Colorado, yeah, we know all the hype with Colorado, but they just got manhandled by a much more physical team in Oregon. So I'm not as impressed with what Oregon has done. Let's see what they do when they actually face a team that is as good as they are, and that is Washington. This is a team, I love the quarterback for Washington. Michael Penix Jr. is playing lights out. And we've all talked about coming into the season that it's the USC quarterback, Caleb Williams, that is going to be the Heisman Trophy winner and a number one draft pick next year. But I'll tell you what, don't sleep on Michael Penix. Last year in this same matchup at Oregon, he threw for over 400 yards. That was the first year in this offense. This is the second year, and they got him some more playmakers. He had his top receiver come back from last year, and he's got more playmakers this year. I like them at home. It's a field goal game. Just have to win this one, basically. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take them. And if you look at this one, I can't, Kelly, don't hate me for bringing this game back up, but I can't get past the one team that Oregon played so far that does have a good offense. Second week of the season, Texas Tech put up 30 on them. It was a 31-30 game, and Texas Tech had the ball in the final 2 minutes of the game. They had an opportunity to win it. We know what happened, the pick six at the end of the game. But even with the 4 turnovers in that game, Texas Tech was still in a position to win that game. I think Washington gets the job done. I've got them winning 41-34.
I'm kind of shocked there. I am too on the Huskies, Joe. But I thought I'd hear Marco say better defense plus the points. But let's be honest, that Oregon defense isn't much better than Washington's. I think this looks like a dead-on-over game. And the last thing I'd want to do is take an under.
Which is exactly why I'm going to take the under here. I do not understand this damn line. First of all, it stinks to me because we're talking about two teams that average around 98 points a game, 97.6 points per game to be exact. In fact, I believe last year we got 71. And then correct me if I'm wrong, this thing opened up lower than the 67 and a half we're getting now. And it's still trending down here. So something has got to give. And I think what's going to give here ultimately is who controls time of possession. And I think because when you have two teams that love to go up-tempo, two guys that are battling for Heisman votes here in Penix Jr. and Bo Nix, two of the best in the Pac-12, there's a lot at stake in this game, which means things tend to shrink here a little bit. And if Oregon can do what they like to do, which is control the time of possession and run the ball and run it successfully, move the chains and score when they need to score, then they're going to put a lot of pressure to Marco's point, just like Texas Tech did against Washington there. And let's face it, neither of these two teams have really been tested to this particular point in the season. These are both going to be the best offenses they have faced, and it's not saying much, but quite honestly, they're the two best defenses that they have faced as well. So I don't understand the line. Everything would tell us to go over, and they're going to score 1 million points. Not what the market is telling us, so I am looking at the under if I'm going to play this one at all.
I had a feeling that's where you were going. Saturday, NBC, 7:30 Eastern, USC a 2.5-point underdog at Notre Dame. Total 63.5. Joe, I'm on the Irish here. I actually gave it out in the Wise Guy contest that Mark Lawrence puts on while I have not been doing very well there, betting on those Sunday and Monday early numbers. This one hasn't moved yet. And I think that kind of tells us what we need to know. Maybe the Irish had a little bit of bad luck in that 5-turnover game loss to Louisville. I like the defense here. That means I got to lay it with the Irish.
Yeah, but you do, and I think the problem that we're going to have in this game is also weather-wise. Keep an eye. There's supposed to be rain. There's supposed to be wind. It's not supposed to be a wonderful, beautiful fall day or night in this particular case in this one, which means that maybe, just maybe, USC is not going to be operating on all offensive cylinders like they used to out west. So I think the weather is going to play a role in this game. And let's face it, USC, who are they stopping? I mean, this defense is absolutely atrocious here. But if I'm Notre Dame, I don't want to get into a track meet regardless with USC. I want to be able to run the ball. I want to be able to dominate time of possession. I want to keep that bad defense out on the field as long as I possibly can. Now, Sam Hartman, it's been a rough couple of weeks, let's face it here. The good news for him is the USC defense is not what he has seen over the last couple of games. So there is going to be some opportunities here, but the big issue to me is going to be the wind. It's going to be the rain, the conditions, and nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to get into a track meet here with USC. It's not advantageous. This opened 63. I'm seeing 60, 60 and a half, and I agree with it. I think this thing is going to continue to fall, so get the highest number you can because I don't see this thing going over on Saturday night.
I have to agree with Joe there. Marco, I just checked the script. You lean towards the Trojans here. I think Notre Dame played the tougher schedule. I think Sam Hartman, while he's not the better quarterback athletically, tends to show me a little bit more of quarterback prowess, we'll say, on the field. Caleb Williams, obviously the Heisman frontrunner for a reason, but I do think on a neutral field, this game is a pick 'em. We'll give them a little bit of home field advantage there in South Bend. Tell me why you like the Trojans.
Well, Kelly, full disclosure, this is probably my weakest of talking about the TV games that we're doing this week, but we had to talk about it. How do you not talk about USC and Notre Dame, especially with USC being undefeated? Now, unfortunately, for the TV ratings, Notre Dame had to go out and screw things up and get their second loss of the season last week. And that's part of the handicap of why I'm leaning to USC. We always talk about the Dream Crusher game, and I know this is a big game. It's a rivalry. They're not going to come up totally flat, but any thoughts of playing in the national playoffs ended last week when they lost at Louisville. I'm sorry. I know everybody wants to get, there's the Notre Dame contingent that always loves them and thinks they should be in the playoffs every year. You're not getting in with 2 losses. For USC, last week, they had a major scare. And why not? Look at what their schedule was. They played Colorado the week before. We know all the hype concerning any game involving Colorado and Coach Prime. Then they had this game on deck. But when a team plays a bad game and still finds a way to win, that's the sign of a good team. And trust me, they played a bad game last week, and they escaped with the 43-41 come-from-behind victory against Arizona. Here's my concern. I know Notre Dame has the better defense. That's without question. My concern is the last 3 weeks, I'm looking at a Notre Dame team that scored 14, 21, and 20. Yes, Ohio State is a good defense. Then Duke and Louisville, above average, but, they're not, you never put them as a defensive juggernaut on your list of defenses. That concerns me. What I fear in this game is that Notre Dame drives down the field with those methodical drives and settles for field goals, where Notre Dame on defense gives up some touchdowns to this high-scoring USC offense. When you start to get some separation in the second half, then Notre Dame's got to force the issue because you can't settle for field goals. And that's where we saw in the last couple of weeks Hartman have his problems. Last week, 5 turnovers against Louisville. I was on Louisville last week as a big play for my clients. I'm going to go against Notre Dame the second week here for the TV play. Don't know that this one makes my card, but this will be one that I want to watch on Saturday night. I have it USC 35-24.
All right, these glasses only mean one thing, but before we kick it to Ralph, I've got a little TNA for myself. My coworker at Superbook Sports, Mr. Chris Felica, tweeted this out 2 days ago, dating back to 2015. There have been 14 pre-bowl instances of a 6-0 or better being an underdog versus a 2-loss team. 11 of the 14 lost outright, including USC last year at Utah, when the 6-0 Trojans lost 43-42 as 3.5-point underdogs. On that note, we're going to pivot. We're going to bring in the guy with all of the data, Mr. Ralph Michaels. There he is, the man with the pen and that very special database to find out all of the things I need and, of course, to create us some of those nerd charts. Ralph, you've got a couple of them for us this week in college football. Take it away.
Well, the first, we're going to show streakers, a popular feature we started last week. My son at JM Sports CLE on Twitter puts this out. Kelly, last week we showed streakers and we said, look at Vanderbilt, 7 straight ATS loss, 6 straight ATS losses, 6 straight overs. Guess what? Vanderbilt now 7 straight ATS losses, 7 straight overs. And I tweeted this out earlier this week, Kelly. If you started prior to week 0 betting a $100 parlay, fading Vanderbilt and the over, and then each week you took all that money and parlayed it again, you now have $783,000 as a little chest fund for this. Again, no one's going to have done that. I understand that. We say that just in fun. But check out some of the ATS streakers. 6 straight ATS wins for Oklahoma and Rutgers. 7 straight ATS losses for Vanderbilt. 6 straight ATS losses for Illinois. Overs. Vandy 7 straight. LSU 6 straight. Utah State 5 straight. And unders, Syracuse, TCU, and Utah, all 5 straight unders. Jeff does post this each and every Sunday on his Twitter, and I do include the streaker sheet in the Bet On It PDF on my homepage every Thursday.
Ralph, that is always fun information. Ralph's homepage, wt.buzz/RM. And boy, would I like to have had one of those Vandy rolling tickets right about now. I have been ice cold, not only in college football, but NFL. The tides are turning, hopefully this week. You've got another chart for us. Break it down for me.
Well, like in the NFL, this isn't a wild chart, but I'm amazed how many times I get asked this on Twitter or on the comments here in the videos. So I wanted to share college football teams off a bye since 2016. So let's take a look at the very bottom in the black. You see home favorites off a bye, 50.8%. Home dogs off a bye, 50.2%. Away favorites, 49.2%. Away dogs, 51.1%. So there's nothing you're going to break out when you're handicapping a game saying it's a huge edge. I also broke it down game by game, Kelly. Again, this chart will be in the PDF. So it was more just a general helping people realize that being off a bye in college football is by no means a reason to bet a team. Yes, there are teams that benefit in certain situations. There's times that it hurts teams in certain situations. This is just something to add to your betting repertoire to make sure you are completely informed when you make those bets in college football each and every week.
Oh boy, one of my best bets for this week is a college football team off a bye. We'll have to reference that chart before we get to the end of the show. Ralph, this is TNA, Trends and Angles, and sometimes situations. Break it down for college football, week 7.
Well, Kelly, we talk about trends, we talk about angles. We say sometimes it makes a play stronger, sometimes it keeps you off a play. Well, this first one is very specific. I normally don't get this specific, but it makes so much sense I wanted to share it. We know Wyoming is the highest altitude stadium there is in football, college or the NFL, over 7,000 feet. When teams played at Wyoming, not have a bye, and they are not a favorite of 21 points or more. So you could be a dog, you could be a 14-point, you could be a favorite all the way up to 20. Those teams, Kelly, since 2009 are 32.1%. So Fresno State this week played Wyoming on the road, and now they're playing on a short week. So while I liked Fresno State, there is no way I'm playing it because that makes total sense to me. You were playing a very physical team in that altitude, and now you're playing on Friday night. So Fresno State in a 32.1 ATS situation, and that's not even counting the short week, which I'm sure would make that number even worse. System number 2, Kelly, is also a Friday game. Now, I'm not sure I can get on the Stanford side, as this system says, but since 2008, if you lost back-to-back games to your opponent as a favorite, and now you're on the road as a favorite or a dog up to plus 15. So again, the only things we're eliminating are dogs of 15.5 or higher, those huge dogs. Those teams since 2008 have gone 62.6%. Does it make sense? Well, listen, you lost back-to-back games to a division foe, to a conference foe as a favorite. Now you're on the road, 62.6% situation on Stanford. Again, that is Friday as well. 2 more. One of the big ones, Notre Dame and USC. Well, Notre Dame was ranked. They lost as a favorite. They now are at home as a favorite, and they have 2 losses from game number 7 on. So why does that make sense? Well, if you lose your first 2 games of the season, you likely weren't very good. If you're getting to the mid part of the season, game 7 on, and you were ranked, and now you have 2 losses, guess what? Your bubble just burst. You are not going to be in a playoff situation. Those teams that lost their second game as a ranked foe and are now a home favorite, 29-55, 34.5% against the spread. That goes all the way back to 1993. So we have a system that's been in place for almost 30 years. That's 34.5%. And again, makes perfect sense. Final system, red hot versus what? Blue cold? What do you say? Red hot versus ice cold? I'm not sure what the word is, but all right. So I looked at teams that won at least 3 straight games against an opponent that lost at least 3 straight games. And the team that lost 3 straight games is a favorite or a dog up to minus 7.5. So big dogs get thrown out. So teams like Pittsburgh that are off back-to-back-to-back straight-up losses, playing Louisville, who's off back-to-back-to-back wins, the line is less than 8. Those teams like Pittsburgh, Kelly, have gone 99 and 61.9% against the spread. So if you think you got a red-hot team against the cold team, guess what? The line is the great equalizer, and those teams have covered. So System 1 says fade Fresno. System 2, play on Stanford. System 3 says fade Notre Dame. System 4 says take that team with 3 straight losses like the Pittsburgh Panthers.
It's pretty funny. The NFL edition, you just absolutely crushed my best bet. And then you come in and you help me like the garbage best bet for the college football edition even more. He is Ralph Michaels. He forces me to put on these nerd glasses every single week for you dorks at home. All jokes aside, at Cal Sports LV, you can check out all of his PDF pages on his homepage at Wager Talk. That's WT.buzz/RM. All right, on that note, I'm excited. The dogs are barking this week in college football. The next segment up is Barking Dogs. Those dogs better be barking for my sake this week. It has been a rough one, literally. No jokes there with the dog pun. Marco D'Angelo, been doing well with your barking dogs. Who do you have for college football week 7?
Well, Kelly, the dogs have been barking. The best bets have been barking. College has been going real well. And this barking dog, man, there might be some fleas associated with this one, is we are going to go to Miami and we are going to take the Hurricanes. And I got to tell you, nobody's going to want Miami this week after what transpired last week. And all I got to say is, what were you thinking, Mario Cristobal, with not taking a knee with 31 seconds left? You run out the clock. You can't lose the game, and that's exactly what they did. They fumbled the football, lost. So normally, Kelly, when a team loses like this, I don't want any part of them the next week because it's a gut-wrenching loss, especially when you were undefeated and I gave you a loss. Your undefeated season goes up in smoke and maybe your playoff chances. But I've got to point out, Miami of Florida, because of the schedule they have, they are still in the playoff hunt. Let me tell you why. They have this game this week against North Carolina. Next week, they have Clemson. Later in the season, they have Florida State. They can still run the table, and if they go through that gauntlet of the 3 teams I just mentioned and get to the end of the season with 1 loss, they will make it into the playoffs. So we're not going to do the old dream crusher effect here. And if I'm Coach Cristobal, you better come up with something this week after what happened last week. And Kelly, I'm going to throw my old adage out there. We know what North Carolina is. They always score. They're a good scoring football team. They always have been. On the defensive side of the football, that's been a bit different issue over the years. Now, they have played better this year, but let's be honest. The last 3 opponents were Minnesota, who can't score, Pittsburgh, that doesn't have a quarterback, and Syracuse, who was coming off a big-time loss that they were sky high for the week before. I'm not sold on the North Carolina defense. I think Miami's going to be able to score on them. And when it comes to defense, we know Miami has the better defense of the 2 teams. Give me the better defense. Give me the points. I'll take Miami, and I'm going to call for the outright upset, 34-28. Do a little sprinkle.
All right, for Marco's sake, which I don't agree or disagree on, I might say, don't want any part of this game. I hope that Mario Cristobal elected for someone else to run the clock management for him. Joe Raineri, our South Florida resident, what say you? Who's barking this week?
Marco, we refer to that as you got Cristobal, my friend, and that's what most people do. And I've been waiting for it. We've been saying it for how long? It was only a matter of time before Mario Cristobal got involved. And boy, did he get involved in a huge way against Georgia Tech. And imagine the poor SOBs that thought they got a bargain by getting them when they were down at even money. Imagine that, a 3-touchdown favorite that were live at even money. And yeah, that was great. We'll do that again real soon.
Were you one of those?
No, not at all. Just if you were somebody that thought you got the best of it, yeah, that was great. But I'm going to hope, and I'm just going to do it to myself since I told myself I'd never get Cristobal again, which I did. I said I would never, ever bet on Oklahoma State again, and yet here I am as they're getting ready at home to take on Kansas, and they are another dog in a spot here at home, taking on what looks to be Jason Bean again. I don't see really any difference between Bean and Daniels anyway, and I think everyone learned that last week against UCF. But what we did learn is that week off certainly helped Gundy and the offense and even the defense of Oklahoma State, because I don't know where that team was, but it's about damn time here, and there's no denying it. I mean, Gundy in this spot as a dog, it's very, very hard to argue with the success they've had. He's been an ATM in this spot. I'm going to roll with him again here because, quite honestly, I'm not that impressed with this Kansas A defense, and B, don't think they're going to be able to do a whole lot of running in this one, not like they did against them last year. Don't forget, Spencer Sanders was hurt. The entire damn team, the whole defense was hurt by the time they played Kansas last year. Kansas ran for over 224 yards on them. Don't see that happening again this year. Revenge spot in Stillwater. Give me Oklahoma State to get it done with the outright win over Kansas.
I would have to agree with that one. They really turned a corner on Friday night over my Kansas State Wildcats. All right, before we kick it back to Joe, we have a little promo for you at Wager Talk. All first-time customers will receive 15% off anything and everything in their cart on their first purchase. There is no limit. There is no cap. You can pick daily or long-term, and the discount is automatic with no coupon code needed. That is All first-time customers feel free to shop until you drop. All right, Joe, it's time to fade you. Who's the public on?
Well, the public seems to think the ass whooping last week wasn't enough for Kentucky. They seem to think maybe they learned a little something about this team. So the entire world seems to think Kentucky is just going to bounce back and handle business against Missouri, with nearly 80% of the tickets as of taping right now seem to be on Kentucky. And I have no idea why. Exactly what did Kentucky show you last week against a quality opponent that would lead you to believe that they are somehow going to bounce back with a former ACC crap quarterback who continues to be crap? And that's what they have there in Kentucky. It's a mediocre team that had the right schedule at the right time and came back down to reality. And then in the meantime, Mizzou, yes, cost us all a lot of money last night. Did we not, with that final pick six there in the closing seconds of that LSU game? Yes, I know we don't have to be reminded of it. But what I will say is I do think the Missouri offense, I trust them much more, and I think they're going to be a little pissed off with how that game got away from them there against LSU. I think we're out of your mind backing everyone running to the window to back Kentucky in this spot here. I think there is going to be a team to bounce back, except it's not the team the public thinks. It's going to be Missouri that's going to go and show you why they are just a cut above this Kentucky team.
Yeah, that's, basically twice in, the first 15 minutes of the show. You guys reminded me of the two worst beats I've had this season. So thank you for that. Marco, I'm no longer hungry. I'm actually sick to my stomach. So go ahead and tell us who your sandwich game of the week is.
Kelly, quick question for you. We know how bad those kind of losses are. Which do you hurts more? One of those pick sixes at the end of the game when you've covered the entire way, or when you've covered the entire way and it's the final play of the game and they do the laterals all over the field that ends up in a scoop and score?
Oh, it's just cruel. It's just all in earth.
I don't know. Listen, the ones that hurt the worst are the ones that you lose your hard-earned money on. Like Texas Tech was my best bet. Mizzou was not my best bet. Unfortunately, I had a nice, beautiful, gorgeous, shiny CLV trophy on UCF instead. So that was super fun. Really enjoyed that one. Yeah, Marco, I don't have an answer for you. Just give me your damn sandwich.
They both suck.
Well, we've all been there. We've all had both of those kind of losses, and I really don't know which is worse. This game here, we're going to go for a sandwich game. And before everybody jumps in the comments, well, I should let you jump in the comments because it helps the algorithm, point out that Duke didn't play last week, so it's not really a full-fledged sandwich. It's still a sandwich between the two games, and I'll explain why. Duke played Notre Dame to the hill 2 weeks ago. They should have won that football game. They had the lead late in the fourth quarter until Notre Dame got the touchdown late and got the 2-point conversion to get the cover. I don't know if you were on that one, Kelly, but I was there, so that one was an ugly one for me. But this is a spot, that was a gut-wrenching loss. Yeah, they had a week to think about it. So you would think, okay, yeah, they got the Band-Aid pulled off. They're ready to go back. But let's not forget who they've got up next. They've got Florida State next week, and that still creates one heck of a sandwich spot. I look at NC State, and everybody's going to say, last week, they barely won. They were in a shootout, 48-41. They gave up 41 points to Marshall. What are they going to do this week? Well, you know what? Last week, they were in their own sandwich spot. They were coming off that gut-wrenching loss against Louisville on Thursday Night Football the week before and had this ACC matchup with Duke. How do you get excited for playing Marshall? Well, you don't, and it almost cost them. What I do like is NC State made a quarterback change last week, and they went to MJ Morse, who they had planned on redshirting this year. But because of the inept quarterback play, they pulled the plug on that plan and they put him in, and it paid instant dividends. He threw 4 touchdown passes last week, 265 yards passing. Now, he did have 3 interceptions, and that's why Marshall was able to hang around. But that was his first game. I am going to look for him to have a cleaner game now that he's got a game under his belt. And I am looking at this Duke team that's got one eye on the road, down the road with Florida State, that big showdown next week. And I'm going to take the live dog. And, let's talk about defenses. I like the NC State defense here outside of the Notre Dame game early in the season when they got beat 45-24. They've held all of their opponents in check. Everybody else, they've held to 21 points or less. And people that like to you hear me talk about the ABC games, comparing teams, common opponents. How many people are going to look and say NC State got drilled 45-24 and by Notre Dame, and Duke only lost by a touchdown in the final seconds of the game, so Duke should handle NC State. Doesn't work that way, guys. Give me NC State 27-20. That's my sandwich game of the week.
Don't kill the messenger. I just got a notification that we will not have VR Ace, the Greek gambler, for today's gold edition. He is stuck at the UFC filming Fight Pass. So make sure you guys go catch him over there for some UFC winners. But again, not my fault. I'm just here so I don't get fined. On that note, we're going to move into best bets. But first, I wanted to remind you guys, all first-time customers receive 15% off anything and everything in their cart on their first purchase. That means daily packages, long-term packages. The discount is automatic and there is no limit or coupon code needed. Woo! On that note, you guys are going to hate me for this one too. So if you didn't hate me enough for the VR news, we're going to take the Pitt Panthers plus 7.5 here. Might even be able to get an 8 before kickoff. I know, Louisville, they were on my list last week. You think I bet them against Notre Dame? No, of course not. And what did they have? They had 5 takeaways from the Irish. And I don't want to take that away from them. This is quite the flat spot. If you guys remember from my TNA comment, guess what? That also applies to a team, and that is Louisville this week. And I will be betting against them. Am I going to get to the window with Pitt on the money line? I might. Stay tuned to my Superbook dog parlay, but let's be honest. This is just such a classic letdown situation. We've got an underdog with revenge coming off a bye week. I know. Marco told me during the break, but Kelly, Pitt's quarterback depth is, woo. But you know what they do have? Defense and special teams. Come on, Pat Narduzzi, do it for me one time. And don't forget, it's also homecoming week there in Pittsburgh. So give me the Pittsburgh Panthers plus the points. We'll see if they can get us an outright underdog winner. Marco D'Angelo, you are up.
I got a special offer for all of the viewers this week, and that special offer is 7 days for the price of 3. You use coupon code MD743. Get it? 743. You're going to get 7 days of service for the price of 3. And guys, right now, all the sports are running. That includes baseball, football, hockey. Join me for 7 days. And this Saturday, we've got a big 5% play. I've only had 2 of them in college football this year so far, and they were both blowouts. Louisville minus 14, 156-28, and Troy plus 1.5, 128-7. Join me, MD743, 7 days for the price of 3, just $69. All right, let's get to that best bet. Hope we can duplicate last week's. What a blowout win that was, as we gave you Georgia last week as our best bet. This week, we're going to go out west, and we're going to go to the Pac-12, and we are going to take a look at UCLA at Oregon State. Now, both teams come into this game with just 1 loss. UCLA has a 7-point loss to Utah, while Oregon State has a 3-point loss to Washington State. Last week, UCLA beat that same Washington State team, but they benefited from turnovers in that game, as they had 4 takeaways from Washington State for the 25-17 victory. I like Oregon State in this one playing at home. They had a shootout last week, 52-40, and you say, where was the defense in that game last week? Well, what I want to point out is that was a bad scheduling spot for Oregon State last week. They were coming off a Friday night game against the team that's dominated the Pac-12 the last 2 seasons, Utah. They won that game in a dogfight against them 21-7, holding Utah to just 7 points, and then went on the road to play Cal with this game on deck. That was what you would call a sandwich spot. And yeah, I did use that last week as the sandwich game, but Cal let us down, lost by 12, getting 7. When a team can be in a bad spot, not play their best game like Oregon State did, giving up 40, and still find a way to win, I like those teams. That's a sign of a good team when you can win when you're not at your best. You're going to see their best this week against UCLA, and they have this brand of football that frustrates UCLA. They play a physical type of football, and this is one of those 200 club members. They can run the football and throw the football for 200 yards. And let's not forget, Oregon State, the last 2 seasons, they have been an absolute money machine, a virtual ATM for their backers. How about 15-4 against the spread the last 2 seasons? Give me Oregon State. I'm going to lay it with them. I got them winning 31-17 as my college best bet for the show.
All right, Joe Raineri, it's that time of the show. Let's wrap it up with your best bet.
All right. Well, the Rutgers came through again last week for us, and I like this game even better, and it happens to be on Friday night. So get there early, guys, and I think Tulane is without a doubt the one team that nobody seems to be talking about, with one of the best quarterbacks in Michael Pratt, the country that nobody's paying attention to simply because of the Bo Nixes and the Michael Penix Jr.'s of the world and the Daniels there at LSU. The list goes on, but make no mistake about it. This Tulane team with quarterback Michael Pratt is a different animal, and they can drop 40 points on you in a heartbeat. In the 3 games, and he just came back, by the way, because he was hurt there for a couple of games, but in 3 games that Pratt has played, they have scored 37, 36, and 35 points. And don't forget, this is the same team that went toe-to-toe there with Ole Miss and had no problem scoring on them. They also, surprisingly, have one of the better defenses that nobody is talking about, and they were anticipated to be and maybe take a step back this year. They have a new offensive coordinator, was the former DC over at Troy last year, who's been known for defense, but this team is no joke, and they're taking on and heading on to Memphis to take on a team that is about as mediocre as it comes. They are certainly mediocre or less than mediocre defensively, which is what leads me to Tulane in this one, saying, listen, Pratt is going to have a field day. They are going to light the Memphis defense up. I don't think Memphis has got enough offense, certainly not with a pretty good defense like they're going to see here of Tulane. Tulane is going to do much like what they did last year and they've done in years past. They're going to play stifling defense, and they're going to drop 35 to 40 points on you. And when they do that, it's going to be more than enough to cover this -4 against Memphis here on Friday night. I'll take Tulane with the better quarterback and the better defense on the road any day. Give it and lay it with Tulane.
All right. I thought we were going to go on a different route there on Friday night, but there is a dog that I like. You guys can get that over on my Twitter. I'll be sure to tweet that one out. But well, this is the end of the show, guys. What am I going to say? Hope you enjoyed it, as we always do. Let's get that recap graphic up for everybody who cheated and got to the end here. At least leave us a comment. Can you like and subscribe so somebody appreciates me doing my job? All jokes aside, from Joe, Marco, Ralph, and myself, good luck this week in college football. And until next week, let's bet on it.